Have you ever met someone or something that changed your life in a way you never expected? You weren't looking for it, it just happened, and suddenly you couldn't imagine your life without them. That's exactly what happened to Matt Owens, a firefighter from New Zealand. But the friend who changed his life wasn't another person. It wasn't even another human. It was a small, helpless Magpie chick, abandoned on the side of the road. And what happened after that? Well, it's the kind of story that reminds you just how unpredictable life can be. So, picture this. Matt is on his way home, just another regular day, when something catches his eye. A tiny bird, barely moving, alone on the side of the road. Now, most people might just keep walking, maybe think it's just a bird and move on. But Matt? He didn't. Something made him stop. Maybe it was the way the little thing was struggling. Maybe it was just instinct. Either way, he knew he couldn't leave it there. So he picked up the fragile chick, wrapped it up in a soft cloth, and took it home. He didn't know if it would make it, but he was going to try. He named her Swoop. Now, Matt already had a pet, a cat named Mowgli, and you can probably guess what happened next. A bird and a cat under the same roof? Disaster waiting to happen, right? That's what Matt thought too. He knew Mowgli was the king of the house, and he wasn't sure how he'd react to this tiny, fragile new guest. But what actually happened? It was the last thing anyone expected. Instead of chasing or attacking Swoop, Mowgli was curious. He'd sit near her, watching, and Swoop, instead of being scared, she seemed comfortable around him. Day by day, that curiosity turned into something else. Mowgli and Swoop started spending more time together. At first, it was just in the same room. Then, it was side by side. And before long, they were inseparable. Swoop would cuddle up next to Mowgli like they had been best friends forever. And Mowgli? He treated Swoop like she was just another cat. As Swoop got stronger, she started to explore more. She learned to fly, but even when she could finally leave, she didn't. She'd go outside, stretch her wings, but she always came back. Back to Matt, back to Mowgli. And the way they acted together, it was like something out of a movie. They'd eat together, sit in the sun together, and even play. But of course, it wasn't always perfect. Like any friends, Mowgli and Swoop had their little fights. Swoop, being a magpie, loved to chirp and poke at things, including Mowgli's tail. And Mowgli, well, sometimes he got tired of it. He'd swat at her, walk away like he'd had enough. But no matter how annoyed he seemed, he always came back. No matter how many times Swoop pecked at his tail, he'd still curl up next to her later. It was like they had their own little language, their own way of saying, "You annoy me, but I love you anyway." Then, something even weirder started happening. Swoop wasn't just getting along with Mowgli, she was starting to act like him. She'd hop onto Matt's shoulder like a cat would climb onto a couch. She'd rest on his chest, snuggle into his neck. She'd follow him around, perch on his head. It was like she had decided she wasn't really a bird anymore. She was part of the family. A weird, feathery, chirping cat. And Matt? He loved it. He'd never seen anything like it. He couldn't believe how much joy this little bird had brought into his life. But life doesn't always give you happy endings. The same day Matt found Swoop was also the day his world changed in another way. That was the day he found out his father had cancer. One moment, he was holding this tiny bird, feeling this rush of hope and happiness. The next, he was hearing the worst news of his life. For a while, it felt like the two things were connected, like Swoop had shown up just when he needed her, and maybe in some way she had. But life moves on, and one day, just like that, Swoop left. She spread her wings, flew away, and never came back. Matt waited. He hoped. But she was gone. Losing Swoop right after losing his dad. It hit hard. But Matt didn't see it as just another loss. He saw it as a reminder that nothing lasts forever, that the best moments in life are often unexpected, and that love, no matter where it comes from, even if it's from a cat and a bird, is always worth it. Mowgli still had his moments of looking around, like he was waiting for Swoop to come back. And Matt, he still thought about her. But instead of sadness, he felt grateful for the time they had. And that's something we can all take with us. Life moves fast. Sometimes the people or animals we love come into our lives, and then they're gone before we know it. But that doesn't mean it wasn't worth it. So if you have someone in your life who matters to you, tell them. If you have a pet, hug them a little tighter today. If you've ever had a moment that changed you, hold on to it. And if this story touched you, share it with someone. Maybe they need to hear it too. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how long something lasts. It's about how much it means while it's here. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, love comes in all kinds of unexpected ways. Just ask Matt, Mowgli, and Swoop.